This video is for 6.2 day 3 notes. We're going to practice rewriting linear equations into slope-intercept form. So the idea here is that we want every one of our problems to be in the form of y equals mx plus b. The short version of that is we want y to be completely by itself for every single one of these problems. So if we look at number 1, what you want to ask yourself is y alone? So number 1, is y alone? Yes, it is. So it is already in slope-intercept form. So you don't have to put anything for the equation. The slope we know is 4/5 and the y-intercept is 7. Number 2, when it says to put it in slope-intercept form, just ask yourself, is y alone? Yes, it is. So this is already in slope-intercept form. Your slope is 1 and your y-intercept is -9. Number 3, is y alone? Yes, it is. So, So you don't have to put anything for the equation. The slope is -3/7. The y-intercept is 10/9. Number 4, is the y by itself? Yes, it is. So this is already in slope-intercept form. But do you notice how the term with the x is last? We usually don't see it that way. We normally see y equals mx plus b. We normally see the part with the x come first. It's not technically wrong. It's the same thing. But in math, we like to be consistent. So a lot of the times, you'll see everyone switches it, and it'll be 2x plus 4, just to keep the slope part first and the y-intercept second. So then your slope is 2 and your y-intercept is 4. So just remember, the part with the x is always your slope, no matter what the order is. Number 5, is the y by itself? In this example, it is not. In order to get y by itself, we have to undo this we have to undo this +5, and to do that, we're going to subtract 5 to both sides. Notice when I put the -5 on the left, I purposely lined it up with its like term. So these 5's cancel. So I have y equals 7x plus 4 because 9 minus 5 is 4. Now y is alone. So here's our new equation, new form of the equation, I should say. Your slope is 7 and your y-intercept is 4. Number 6, is the y by itself? The answer is no, because this 2 is with it. Well, how do we get rid of that 2? Right now, it's multiplication, 2 times y. So to undo that, we have to divide by 2. But we have to divide everybody by 2. So every single term gets divided by 2. So those 2's cancel. So we have y equals, I'm looking at this term now in orange, 5x/2. Think of it as a fraction. Does it reduce? The answer is no, so we can leave it as 5x/2. Now I'm looking at this last term. It's a -6/2. Does that reduce? The answer is yes. -6 divided by 2 is -3. So there's your new equation. Your slope is 5/2. Your y-intercept is -3. Number 7, is the y alone? The answer is no. We have to undo this -6x. So to undo that, we are going to add 6x to both sides. So we are left with y equals 0 plus 6x. We don't normally write the 0, so it's just y equals 6x. Now the slope is 6 because that's the number with your x. The y-intercept, remember, is 0. There is no y-intercept. Well, there is. It's at 0. So number 8, is the y by itself? The answer is no, because there's a 3 in front. So right now that is multiplication, 3 times y. So to undo multiplication, we have to divide. But with this, we have to divide every single term. So here the 3's cancel and we're left with y equals. I'm looking at this term in orange first. Treat it as a fraction. Can it reduce? The answer is no. So we leave it as negative 2x over 3. Now I'm looking at this last term, 12 over 3. Can it reduce? The answer is yes. It becomes 4. So here's your new form of the equation. The slope is negative 2/3. The y-intercept is 4. I'll do number 9 as well, but if you feel like you get the hang of this, go ahead and skip the video until you get to the back side. So for number 9, we ask ourselves, is y alone? The answer is no, because there's a negative 6 in front. So that's multiplication, negative 6 times y. So to undo that, we have to divide. But we have to divide every single term. So the negative 6's cancel and we have y equals. Treat this term in orange as a fraction. Can it reduce? The answer is no, so just leave it as 5x over negative 6. Now I'm looking at the last term here in purple. Can it reduce? The answer is yes. It is a negative 12 over a negative 6, which becomes a positive 2. So here's the new equation. Your slope is negative 5 over 6. Your intercept is 2. I'm going to look at number 2 on the back. So the first thing we ask ourselves is the y alone? And it is definitely not alone. We have a couple things to take care of. We have this 2x that's being added, and we also have a 5 in front of the y. We have to undo addition and subtraction first, which means we have to undo that 2x. So we're going to undo it by subtracting 2x to both sides. Notice over here in green how I didn't line them up completely, and that's because they're not like terms. So I kind of put that negative 2x off to the side. So these 2x's will cancel, and I'm left with 5y equals. Now, before I continue writing, remember, we usually like to have the x term come first, and then the number, which will be the y-intercept, usually comes second. So that's how I'm going to write it. So this is negative 2x plus 11. Now, I still have a 5 in front of the y, so we're going to divide everything by 5, and we have y equals. Now, in red, can that fraction be reduced? The answer is no, so we leave it as is. And then in orange, can that fraction be reduced? The answer is no, so we leave it as is. And there is your new equation. Number 3, ask yourself, is y alone? The answer is no, definitely not. We have a negative 8x and we have a 2. We have to undo addition and subtraction first. So I have to get rid of that negative 8x first. So to undo it, I have to add 8x to both sides. And those negative 8's cancel. Before I move on, notice in green how I separated the 10 and the 8x because they're not like terms. So I can't actually add them together. But what I'm left with is 2y equals, we usually put the term with the x first, and then the regular number, which will be the y-intercept, will come later. All right, we still have the 2 in front of the y, so we have to divide everything by 2. So here we have y equals. Now, in red, can that fraction be reduced? The answer is yes. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then in orange, can that fraction be reduced? The answer is yes. 10 over 2 is 5. So there's your new equation. Looking at number 4, we're trying to get the y by itself, but we have a 5x and we have a -6 as well in front of the y. So the first thing we have to undo is the 5x. We can do that by subtracting 5x to both sides. Now look closely at what you have in purple. It is a -6y equals, we put the x term first and the number last. All right, now we still have a -6 in front of the y, so we're going to divide every single term by -6, and those -6 cancel. Y equals, take a look in red. Does that fraction reduce or simplify? The answer is yes. 2 negatives become a positive. So this is actually positive 5x over positive 6. Then look here in blue, dark blue. Ask yourself, can that fraction be reduced? The answer is no, so we leave it. Okay, looking at number 6, I'm going to jump to number 6. So in this case, we're trying to get the y by itself, but hopefully you notice that there's some distributing that can happen. So I see a minus sign, so I am going to add a line, change the sign, and I'm going to distribute the 3. So I have 6x plus -15 plus y equals 10. Now I'm really trying to get this y by itself. So I'm going to need to add 15 to both sides. Now notice here in blue, I did line up the 10 and the 15 right underneath because those are like terms. So I'm going to be able to add them together. So those 15s cancel. 6x plus y equals 25. I'm still trying to get this y by itself. So now I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. I have y equals, let's put the term with the x first, -6x plus 25. Okay, I'm going to do one more, and I'm going to do number 8. So again, I see some distributing that can happen. So that's going to be the first thing we want to do. I also see subtraction, so I'm going to add a line, change the sign, and now this 4 is going to get distributed through. So I have 8y plus -36 plus 5x equals 0, and we want the y to be by itself. So I am going to add 36 to both sides. So I still have 8y plus 5x equals 36. Now I'm going to undo this plus 5x. So I'm going to subtract 5x to both sides. So now I have 8y equals -5x plus 36. And then the last thing that I have to do is divide everything by 8. So this is y equals -5 over 8x plus 9 over 2. So this fraction in green reduced to 9 over 2.